It's been said that where we are today is the direct result of choices that we have made, and some people would add, and the people that we associate with. Well, I think there's some truth in that because the fact is that life is a series of choices. Have you ever thought about how many choices we make each day? When I'm driving, I notice people making some, bad choices. But when we drive, we effectively, we're about to make a left turn. So we examine the traffic that's headed our direction. We estimate the rate of closure and the rate of their approach. And we decide whether to make that left turn or not make that left turn. And we basically weigh what are the costs and the benefits versus what are the risks. And it's amazing sometimes the chances that people will take in order to save just a few moments of time in traffic. Because, if you're right, you actually can make the turn. If you're wrong, you have a collision which could involve certainly property damage, but possibly injury and possibly even death. There's so much to lose and so little to gain, yet we take incredible risks because of choices we make. Decision making involves literally weighing the costs and the benefits. Before we do something, we should consider, do we have the resources to do it? Let's say you're going to build something, a house or whatever, or buy a car, whatever the decision could be. You first kind of take a snapshot of your financial situation, because if you're going to if you're doing a building project, you've got to buy the materials. Well, if you don't have the money, it really doesn't matter. You can't do it. But assuming that you do have the resources, then it becomes a matter of, am I willing to give up the costs, the money, and the time in order to get the benefit of it? So what does this mean for us spiritually? Well, I can remember from time to time I would be invited to speak. And I have been involved in volunteer mission trips domestically as well as internationally. And if you've ever gone on a mission trip, when you come back, you are fired up, and you should be. And you can't wait to share with others, and you just want to rip their head off and spit down their neck saying, you got to do this. It's really cool. Well, from time to time, I would get a chance to speak to a group and share my experience on the mission field, and I was always happy to do it, and still am. But I was so involved in it. This was before the days of some of the technology that we have today, and it's kind of a low-tech solution, but I would take a 3-ring binder and I would catalog various mission opportunities out there. And some would be near, some would be far, some would be short term, some would be longer term, some would be lower in cost, and some would be higher in cost. But when I'm sharing my mission experience that I'd recently had with a group, I would say, if anybody would come see me afterwards, I have this catalog of mission opportunities, and you can look through that catalog and see what might be good for you. Well, I'm sad to say not many people actually did see me afterwards and check out my catalog, but there were a few. And they would go through the page and they would look at this opportunity and say, well, that's at the wrong time of year. And they'd flip the page and go to the next one. That one's, that one, that's way beyond what I can afford, as if money couldn't be raised for them to go. I never could afford any of the mission trips that I took. But God provided a way after I'd committed. And they would go through and get to the last page in the book, and guess what? None of them were okay. Well, what really happened there in that little snapshot, in that moment, in that instant, they considered the cost. And in considering the cost of discipleship, the cost was too high. Well, this is not a modern or contemporary phenomenon. It's been going on for some time. In the book of Luke, chapter 14, I'm looking at verses 25 through 34. I won't read the entire text. You can certainly look it up yourself, and there are various versions and translations, but it goes like this. Basically, Christ calls us to be a disciple, and that will involve a cost. And then he talks about that if someone wants to build a tower, they would first consider the cost. Or a king is about to go to war. And it ends in verse 33. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything, you cannot be my disciples. You know, there's another place in the Bible, I don't know exactly where it is, and you can certainly Google it or look it up, and heck, if you can't find it, hit me up. I'll find it for you, where this man approaches Jesus saying, you know, Lord, I want to be your disciple. What do I have to do? Well, Jesus told the man to sell everything that he possesses and give the money to the poor, and then follow him. Well, of course, that didn't happen. Now, what it doesn't say, and what I believe, is that it wouldn't have mattered what the cost was, because, you know, I believe that the man was not interested so much in being a disciple as holding the office of disciple. Anytime that we are confronted with the reality of the cost of discipleship, I think it's helpful to be reminded that Jesus considered the cost of the cross. We're approaching the Easter season as I record this devotional video. And I'm reminded of the prayer just prior to his arrest. The Bible records that Jesus sweat blood. Scientists and physicians have later confirmed that it is rare, but it is possible to literally sweat blood. Jesus very much considered the cost of our salvation. Let's keep that in mind when we consider the cost of discipleship.